Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the dial.
Yeah, something different today.
Yeah.
We're both on one side.
Exactly. So something interesting is happening. But first of all, I want to say thank you so much for 500 subscribers.
Guys, it's been cool. It's been really cool. And only because of you guys, today is possible.
Exactly.
So thank you very much. And hopefully you guys enjoy this really cool
episode.
Really cool
We got going
on. Yeah. It's going to be cool.
So we have a guest, but not just any other guest. We have a very important guest. This guest we admire so much. He is a watch expert. He's a watch salesman. He's a watch photographer. He does it all. Introducing Casey
from Luxury Time. Welcome, bro.
Welcome, Casey.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, so I work at Luxury Time. I'm always a bit of behind the scenes kind of person.
Yeah.
I started just like with our YouTube page, getting into our marketing, graphic design and such.
Yeah.
And then from there, I also got into a bit of sales. From sales, I've also moved on to all our international sales, managing our chrono and everything.
Nice.
And yeah, I've been in the industry now for almost 5 years. So I'm far from being a watch expert. There's still a ton that I need to learn and I don't know yet. But I've got a good grasp on the market, on watches that we work with. And from it, I've started to build quite a bit of a love for horology and everything.
That's lovely. Yeah, I was actually going to say, let's start it from the beginning. What made you love watches? When did you start loving watches? What was your earliest age where you realized this is what I want to do with my life?
So I never had I don't really have a traditional story of someone gave me a watch when I was younger, like my grandfather passed me down something like that. I was just kind of looking for a job post-COVID, and the first opportunity that came to my door was working at Luxury Time. And I had no knowledge of watches. I literally went into there just talking a lot of rubbish about thinking that I didn't know everything about watches and I admire them and the craftsmanship. But over the years, after handling hundreds, if not probably thousands of watches, started to get attached to them. There's some brands that I definitely feel speak more to me, and some brands I can definitely stay clear of just from handling them.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
We're going to go into that definitely.
Exactly. And speaking of watch brands and watches on our wrist, let's do a quick wrist check.
Yes.
Shall we?
Wrist check, yeah.
So I think I should start with myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay,
cool. So I am wearing, hopefully everyone can see it, the Venezia Nico, what is this? Arsenale. Yes. I forgot. Arsenale with a purple dial with a purple rubber strap. This is going off the website for about 16,000 Rand, which is around, I think, 800 euros if I'm not wrong. And this is the watch that I've been reviewing. I'm sure you guys have seen it also on the channel. Stay tuned for part 2 of my review because everyone's seen your review, but I haven't recorded mine yet. And this is it. Daniel, what you got on your wrist, mate? Talk to me.
I've got the classic, guys. We've all seen it. We all love it. Venezia Nico as well. The Redentore Ultra Black, our very first collaboration with Venezia Nico that we did. Retailing as well around, right now actually, around 17,000 off the website. So not too bad.
Yeah.
But all good. And man, just a fan favorite. Musso, black dial, everything we love. And what about you, Casey? What do you got on your wrist today?
So I've got something that has a little bit more flash and definitely catches the eyes. It's a vintage Gerald Genta day night. So it's got a very cool day night indicator with a GMT hand as well. Lovely beads of rice bracelet, super comfortable, and something definitely different.
Yeah, very different. I mean, Gerald Genta is arguably one of the most important watchmakers in recent time, definitely. I mean, we can obviously thank him for the iconic RO, right?
Yes.
So
who doesn't love an RO, right?
You know what I mean? So even though we've said some on the channel, we've said some interesting things about it.
It's a love-hate relationship we have with Audemars sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, Audemars is a legacy brand. They're part of the history of what watchmaking is. So, all love and respect.
Yeah, and I think Genta has a lot under his belt. Definitely the godfather of watchmaking in my eyes.
Yes.
Everything from the pole router to the constellation, he's done it all for multiple brands.
Yeah.
Helped out with Heuer as well, I believe.
Yes, he did.
And
Oh, okay.
I think the watchmaking world is a bit sour now that he's gone, but
Yeah.
I definitely think there are a lot of new pioneers coming up in the independent world, and that's where the shift is going to go in the market, I think.
Which actually leads me to actually my next question. What do you see the watch world going from here? Do you see them still sticking with legacy brands, or do you feel like we're going to graduate from that to more independent brands like your NBNF, like your smaller micro brands? Where do you see it going from here?
I think especially from the late 90s when independent brands really started to emerge, it started to show the world that there was actually a space for independent brands. Like, as much as everyone wants a Rolex and wants an Omega or an AP, not everyone can actually afford them. And a lot of these independent brands have actually just priced themselves where a lot more people can actually get their hands on their watches. I think one of the brands that speaks the most to me is Baltic. Super classic.
Shout out Baltic. Yeah.
Love their classic watches, their bronze cases, and they also have some gorgeous dress watches now with micro rotors as well, which I do love. It's not something every brand does now. You only typically see it in the higher end of the luxury spectrum, I would say, just because they're not as accurate or reliable as a full-size rotor would be. So using a micro rotor just adds a bit more touch to the heritage of it, I guess.
That's good. No, we, especially on the channel, we have a big love for micro brands, for independent brands, because same thing, like we were saying off camera, we kind of feel sort of similar to them in the space that we're operating in, and we're talking about this, and on the South African market, we're the first people to really bring this to light. So when we see your Baltics, your Venezia Nicos, your
Christopher Ward,
Christopher Ward, MBNF, Studio Underdog, all you name it, we're like, okay, these guys are shifting the industry by force, because you can't not ignore them just because it's not a Patek or Rolex.
Yeah.
So and especially with social media, I mean, they are seen by more people now than obviously ever before. So yeah, we definitely share that sentiment as well.
And I do also feel that brands like Studio Underdog and Baltic, they've made cool watches accessible. And before, cool watches that most people could afford were typically your Swatches or your G-Shocks and your Casios. And no hate to them, they also make some really cool watches. But I think we were kind of lacking a space where there was good quality, affordable watches. Seiko used to be that, but even Seiko's retail prices, they're starting to edge up every single year. And their quality is good for what you are paying for. But instead of paying 30k for a Seiko, I'd rather go to the pre-owned market, buy myself a Breitling or something like that.
I see what you mean. Sure.
That's actually so true, because now, actually just speaking of when you said Breitling, I think a lot of people, and especially the video that I did on Breitling, a lot of people don't respect Breitling anymore. And it's almost like a brand that everyone seems to forget. Why do you think Breitling is left out of the conversation these days?
To be honest, I think Breitling has just had a bit of lack of innovation in the last decade or so. They make some really cool watches, and the higher end of their spectrum of the Mont Brilliant and the Navitamas have gorgeous movements. They are just stunning watches, but they haven't really been doing anything too different. The chronomats that they've been releasing over the past few years have been kind of cool and paying a lot of homage to their history. But in terms of the movements that they're putting in their new watches, you can't really or at least I can't justify the retail prices that they are asking for them.
Okay. And how much roughly are the retail prices going for, like a Breitling? If I said I want to get a Breitling, middle of the road Breitling, maybe not the expensive one, but I just want to get a Breitling, maybe I'm new to watches, how much am I looking at investing in it?
So I believe Breitling's entry-level watches would be their Endurance series, and that's kind of like a carbon fiber quartz chronograph watch on a rubber strap.
Right.
They come in quite a big assortment of colors, white, red, purple, you name it. And I think the retail on them is about 86,000 Rand.
Okay.
Which is quite steep, and they are really cool watches, but the movement they are using doesn't justify the price when it's less than a 10,000 Rand movement.
I see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Sure. Okay. Well, so then your perspective now, because you've you've dealt with thousands of watches by now, and you said in the beginning that there's some watch brands that you will hold to your heart forever, and there's some brands where if they weren't available, you wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah.
What would be, from what your experience, what would be your top 3 best and top 3 worst that you've dealt with?
So just off the top of my head, I'd probably say my top 3 brands that I've got to deal with and handle myself would definitely be Vacheron. I think the first one I saw was Rose Gold Overseas, and just the muted tones on it. I'm a very big fan of earthy tones in watches. I think it just looks very subtle and sleek and just goes with everything. As much as a black or a stainless steel watch goes with everything as well, it doesn't work in my eyes. So Vacheron is definitely up there. Cartier, I'm more of a fan of the vintage Cartier versus the newer models. The large Dumont is probably my go-to. I love the dress version of that. I think I'd want to own one day as well. And probably AP. I've had quite a few Offshores and Royal Oaks in my hands. Love their vintage Edward Piguet watches as well. I think they're just different. They don't scream AP, and that's what I love about them. I think the workmanship and craftsmanship is just incredible as well.
Yeah.
The 3 brands that I don't think I would ever see myself owning or wanting to buy. Probably I'm going to start at Hublot.
Damn it.
It's not a brand.
Sorry, Daniel.
So it's not a brand that receives a lot of love, especially at luxury time as well. We do work with a lot of them, and they are good watches. They're very comfortable. They've got a very unique look, and people do love them for that. Just personally, I don't see the hype in them with the quality of the movement that they use in their watches. It's very poor, especially when you're asking 300k retail for some
wow,
watches.
I didn't even know that's 300k.
And that's before you even go to the precious metal big bangs. Those are going 500-600k retail. And the movements just aren't up to it. So definitely Hublot I would personally avoid. I'm not the biggest fan of Tag. They make some cool watches. I like the Monaco and I prefer the vintage Heuers.
Okay.
All of the new Tags that have come in the new glass box that they released, I think last year or the year before.
The glass boxes,
Beautiful designs, but the movements are just poorly engineered.
Wow.
So that's as much as I'll say about Tag as well.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So it's definitely Hublot, Tag, and the last one that I would probably avoid. It's hard to say. I don't think there is a third that I would avoid. I think it would just be Hublot and Tag.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure.
There's almost there's almost at least one model from every brand that I would take, given the opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So and then we had amongst the guys on the DAO, we had this debate going on, talking about Vacheron, talking about AP saying the top, the holy Trinity. Do they belong there? Should we make a new one? Are they
overusing the Royal Oak design?
The design, what else? I mean, of course, they've got the 1159, which is one of my personal favorite that they've made recently, especially the carbon, which we did a video on a couple months ago when it came out. But your perspective on what you've seen people say, listen, if it's not, in most cases, if it's not an AP, Patek, or Vacheron, nothing can compare to these top 3. Do you agree with that statement? Or do you think someone at the dials also like Rolex? Some people say Richard Mille. Some people say, some people even said to us Breitling at some point. So what do you think about that? Just your personal opinion.
So the Holy Trinity itself with Vacheron, AP, and Patek, I think they do believe that. I think they do deserve that name. They are the pinnacle of watch or Swiss watchmaking, at least when that was termed out. I don't know if they do deserve to hold that position right now, because there are independent brands that are producing far superior watches with innovative movements.
Really?
And the first one that comes to mind would be FP Journe.
Oh,
Okay.
I
yes,
think
yes, yes.
FP Journe, at least in South Africa, it's not a brand that is well known. Definitely
That's true.
just because it is on the top tier of luxury watchmaking, and it's
Couldn't
not
agree
something
more.
that's really available here. There are a few collectors here that do have some of them, but nothing that I've seen in person. And amongst FP Journe, I would definitely say Daniel Roth as well.
Daniel Roth is a
I'm-
shout.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Daniel Roth. I think their inspiration from Piguet is beautiful and their take on it. And I just think it's such a classic watch. If I could pick anything, a Daniel Roth would probably be at the top of my grail list. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, the Holy Trinity, their watches are incredible. AP does make some really cool pieces. I think they've been hanging on to the Royal Oak design for a bit long now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
want to see
we've
them
made
more.
that statement many times. We're like, listen, you have the heritage, you have the history, you've made some of the best watches that'll probably ever be made.
And they've also made strides into pop culture, which is one thing I also kind of look. I appreciate that, but it's also gotten to a point where it's also too much.
Yeah, we've had even comments where people saying like the one AP that we refer to with the Kina Music collab, people like, and the like the new cause, another cause AP.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, when are you guys gonna show us why you're AP? Because the generation that knew AP for the vintage are either no longer here or they just, they're doing their own thing right now.
yeah.
So now they're in our faces now. So we're like, okay, well, we know AP for that history. Like we were talking about the vintage APs from the 70s and, like those classic, black dials and onyx black dials and so on and so forth. But like now, especially for us, we look at, like you're saying, the independent guys and we're like, hold on. I mean, MBNF, although MBNF make the crazier the better.
Statement pieces.
Thank you, statement pieces, but
Yeah.
purely for the fact that they're able to manipulate material like that, I think even push them at least in the top 5 right
definitely.
now, for sure. Daniel Roth, great shout. So, yeah, I just think I think right now it's just shifting, and it's like people kind of don't want that to happen, so they're kind of like, oh no, but this is what we know. Watches is that, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, one of my favorite independent ones, Horology Ming, with their bluefin when they won in the GPSG, they won best sports watch. I looked at that, I'm like, okay, AP, Patek, like what are we doing? And then Patek drops the Cubitus.
Oh yes.
And
Very mixed feelings on that watch.
you,
Let's
you
talk
see what
about
I
it.
mean.
Yeah,
So what do you think about
Yes.
that
Patek
one?
Cubitus.
My first thoughts on it was why?
Yeah.
I just didn't really see why they released it. I think Michel Herblin released that watch about 2 years prior.
Yeah.
So it felt like a bit of a copy paste.
Interesting.
Seeing the photos of them on wrists and the actual movements and everything slightly did change my mind. I think it's a cool watch, something I do want to see in person. But you can't compare it to a Nautilus. And I think the Nautilus is still going to have a bit of a higher seat in tiering.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Cubitus. I know some people do love it, but right now it's still...
Does it deserve the hate that it's getting? What do you think? What do you think about that?
To some extent, I do, because I feel like they really could have done something new with the drop.
Yeah.
And they could have actually engineered something that wasn't so similar to what they already do. As much as they want to pay homage and carry on that success of the Nautilus, I just don't think it was the right move. And I think it is a very hard space in watchmaking now, because there are so many brands that try out all different kinds of shapes, from RMs and Frank Muller's having that tornado shape to your square Ballon Ross, and then your traditional circular cases. So it is kind of hard to break away and do something new, but I just don't feel like the Cubitus was it.
Was it?
Was there?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are saying your first drop after 20 years, like new release.
25, I think it was.
Yeah, 25 years. It's like we were hoping for that Patek,
Something wow.
that oh my goodness, Patek is it, And then when it came out, I remember the memes were like, what happens when you take a Casio and a Casio and another brand have a baby, and people were just like upset. You could tell people were like, no, but this is not Patek. Like, this is not what we know. So I think, yeah, we agree with that sentiment. I mean, even what the CEO said. And
yes, I that's what I was actually going to get to. Like, the attitude that they had afterwards was
basically like, well,
you're not going to own a Patek, so
anyway, so like, it's not even,
you saw exactly.
It's not even about you, and you're just like, okay, bro, but.
And then that's the thing, and I was saying that we know that we can't afford the Patek, but that doesn't mean that our opinions don't matter, right? Yeah. So it was kind of like, no, I don't think it's the right mentality to have. Look, everyone's not perfect. Some watches are hits and misses, and that I think that's one thing as the watch people in the watch industry and watch fans need to accept, that not everyone's going to be perfect. Some will be duds, some will be great, but I think it's also up to the watch brands to be like, okay, let's take this in and not blame the consumer, you know what I mean? Not blame the crowd that's like, no, you don't like it because you can't afford it. You know, it's for me, that's not the right mentality to have. Yeah.
And I think watches, they also have to stand quite a bigger test of time.
Yeah.
So watches that weren't so popular in the 70s and 80s, like your Submariners, are now huge. And vintage watches that kind of popped off in the 80s from Piaget and AP, your very cool gem set watches.
Right.
Those are starting to be revitalized again now, and they're starting to have a lot of hype around them. And there's a lot of interest in that. So watches that we might not like right now, like the Cubitus, it might be very desirable in 50 years. I know when Patek did release the Nautilus that came on the denim strap 2 years ago, there was a lot of hate around that.
Controversy.
Within a year, so many people now want that watch because it's cool and it's a very casual looking Patek.
So you reckon we should give it time, right? Is that what you're saying? Like, let's give it time.
Yeah, I think it's hard to just pass judgment so soon on watches. I think you do have to give them a bit of time and see what people's opinions actually are on them after they have owned them and worn them a bit.
Okay.
Because it's very quick to just judge it by its cover, and then you regret it a few weeks or months later when you actually get it in your hands.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
That's fine. So I actually want to talk about more of collecting, right? Collecting watches. And I think that's one thing that everyone is here to do. We love to collect watches. So in your opinion, if I may ask, what do you think the biggest mistakes people do when collecting watches? You've dealt with a lot of clients and stuff. Would you say is like maybe like 3 of the biggest mistakes that they do?
I think the first thing is, as soon as someone comes in and says they're looking for an investment, that's the biggest red flag that I pick up on.
Okay.
Just because as much as watches can be a place where you can store money and you can get some of that back, if not all of it, depending on when you choose to sell it and what watch and everything.
Right.
Watches are really built to be enjoyed. And it's something that you should be wearing and loving and hoping to pass it down to your children if you have, for example. So when someone comes and tells me they want a watch for an investment, my eyes already go wide, and I know what kind of client this person is going to be. Just because it's very hard to tell someone this can be an investment if you're buying the right watch at the right price. But you can't expect to buy a watch and resell it in 2 months' time and expect to make any money off of it. It's not the market that we had in 2022 and 2021. And it was a weird time, and it was a bit of an anomaly. So I think that shifted a lot of people's mindsets around watches, and that you could just make a quick buck flipping watches here and there. But with collecting watches, I think the best thing to always suggest to someone is find something that you love, that speaks to you. It doesn't matter if it's a cheap vintage watch you see at a thrift store or if it's something you've been passed down. If you're trying to buy your first luxury watch, always compare what you can get at your different prices. So if you have 30,000 Rand, I'd avoid going and buying a watch brand new. There are some brands, like independent brands, where you can buy really good quality watches brand new, but just with my own experience, I'm around the more well-known brands, I guess, all the Swiss brands, so your Tags, Omegas, Breitlings, Longines. And I think Longines and Omega and Breitling are really great entry-level watches to get into. Omegas, I would just avoid vintage Seamasters or your gold-plated manual wind watches. As great as they are, it's just a bit of a nightmare if anything goes wrong and trying to find someone that can service it.
I see.
But the Seamasters from when James Bond came out and all of that, great watches, they hold a lot of value as well. So I think with starting collecting, you just need to find something that you like. You don't need to worry about the brand.
Okay.
If you're going down the vintage route, there are so many weird and obscure brands that make quality watches. Pierre Cardin uses JLC movements, and those are watches you can pick up for well under 5,000 Rand.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think if you want to start, I would look into the vintage aspect of it. It is a bit harder in South Africa because we don't have the widest market that's super accessible. So we don't have eBay here. As much as you can order from eBay, it's not readily right here. Bob's shop has some watches, but there's always a bit of trust factor on if you want to buy online or you actually want to see it in person first. But there are some gems. I've picked up a few very cool watches as well for 2,000 Rand, under £1,000.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, you don't have to worry about them as well. You don't have to stress when you're in Joburg or driving around. No one's going to rob you for it. So there's always that as well, I guess, yeah.
And then in terms of actually like the whole pre-owned market, like with Chrono, right? How is that in South Africa? How do you guys find it? Like, is it are South African watch lovers, enthusiasts, or looking
Buyers,
for investment pieces, buyers, whatever? Do they use Chrono, or do they prefer? Of course, I would assume they prefer hands-on, obviously, but is Chrono a viable option from the South African perspective? Because when we go on Chrono, I mean, of course, you got in terms of your sellers, it's Japan, Hong Kong, Italy, Spain, Portugal, so in the US and Canada and so on. So how do you find Chrono specifically, and I guess extended to Bezel, to all the other?
So Chrono is a really great tool, especially for clients, because they can use the platform to kind of see where market prices are on a specific watch. Most clients do still prefer to come into a store and buy watches from a pre-owned market or dealer instead of ordering from Chrono, just because if the watch is available in the South African markets, there's a 90% chance it's priced within the Chrono stand, like market-related prices, and it's cheaper than ordering it online, actually. And then ordering online, depending on where you're shipping it from and everything, there's always the import fees involved and the customs and all of
taxes, duties, all that.
And that also adds up. So there are people that do use it and do order from Chrono, but it's not that much. There are a lot of dealers or South African dealers that do list their stock on Chrono for the international market. And it's mostly watches that do tend to sit a bit more in South Africa because they're not as desirable and the market's just a bit smaller. So your more expensive Submariners, like a double red Sea Dweller, for example, that'll sit for quite a while here because it's a very, very niche market for that, versus in the US where it's probably like 10 times here. And then you've got the whole world looking at it as well.
Interesting. Yeah, because I remember when the Cubitus came out, I mean, on Chrono it was going for
$4+ million.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Like, it was already being...
Yeah, it was already like being sold again. And it was like... Cause
So what was that? Was that people getting the watch and saying, I don't like this anymore?
No, it was just people that got on the wait list first and they got their hands on watch and they wanted to make a quick buck. It's also hard to say because it could just be dealers that are also trying to flip the watches themselves.
Yeah, sure.
Underhanded tactics.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, interesting.
All right, yeah. Well, then, now, speaking of one thing that we've, I think one of the controversies that we've always had on this channel is with regards to smartwatches. Where do you see smartwatches fitting in with real watches? Because on this channel, it's well, maybe it's my opinion. I don't know about everyone else, but I do not like smartwatches at all. I feel like they're underused? Like, look, I understand if you're a smartwatch and you actually do fitness and exercise and you go and do sports, you need that. But where do you see the smartwatch industry competing with the luxury? Do you think the smartwatch industry will take over the luxury timepiece industry because everything is going so technological these days? Do you think mechanical watches will be left behind? Do you fear that? Yeah.
We're always going to have mechanical watches. There's always going to be a demand and desire for that.
Yeah.
Just for the feel of the craftsmanship and knowing that it's something more than just a chip in your watch that's telling you the time. I think smartwatches do have their place in the world. There are people that do use them, runners and cyclists and people that are actually trying to track their own health. I do use one as well just for my own benefit of tracking my health, my sleep schedule, getting my discovery points. But
shout out Discovery.
At the first given chance, I'm going to put on a mechanical watch and wear something that I feel a bit connected to. I don't think the smartwatch is like fad or whatever is going to completely take over. Some brands have obviously been dipping their toes in it, like Tag with the Connected series. And I honestly think the Tag Connected series is quite a flop. They are cool watches, don't get me wrong, but asking 30,000 Rand for a digital watch,
damn it,
and then like their Tag Golf Connected, for example, it's about 36,000 Rand retail, and you can't even play a full game of 18 without it dying. I don't really see how it's going to last, but there are always people that will buy them at retail. They are the Tag diehard fans, unfortunately. But
he says unfortunately. Now it's a good time to tell you I'm a diehard fan.
He's a diehard fan.
Not a diehard, but I do enjoy Tag's recent releases.
Well, I mean, but like for me, like Tag, it's Monaco, Aqua Racer,
Carrera.
And and that's what I like. The rest, I mean, I know they did that collaboration with Kith.
The Kith Professionals are really cool watches, but retail is also ridiculous on them.
Obviously,
the Tag Skipper Carrera that they released, I think 2 years ago, with the blue dial and the like watermelon sub dial, very cool watch. I think it's something very playful. It's just a pity that they use rubbish movements.
So you don't mind playful watches, because that's one of the questions I was gonna ask. Like, how do you feel like about those gimmicky watches? Like, for example, like Spinnaker with the SpongeBob collection,
or like the new Blancpain and Swatch collab, where it's just.
I'm not a fan of the Blancpain Swatch. I've got one of the Omega Swatches though, like the Mission to Saturn, so also the earthy tone one.
He's a big fan of that collection.
And I think they made cool watches. I don't know why they're releasing one every single month with Omega and Swatch. It's so ridiculous. There's probably like 30 different versions of it now. But I think for the price points, it's also a really cool watch to consider. For like 5,000 Rand, you get something that says Omega and Swatch. So you have a little bit of history in it as well. You've got a chronograph, and just buy some new straps for it, because the Velcro one is quite shit.
Okay. Okay, so I was actually that's one of the questions I was also gonna follow up with. Is it true that, because I've never really owned or like seen as much the Omega Swatch collaborations, is it true that the watch itself it breaks down easily? Like it's not durable? Because that's one thing that I think the fans are saying, Omega Swatch, but like it's not durable.
I think the people that are saying it's not durable just don't know how to take care of watches, because I've had mine for about 2 years now. I wore it for more than a year as a daily, and it still functions perfectly, no chips or anything. The plexi does have a few like little marks and whatnot, but that can be polished out, and it's nothing that's like obscuring my vision of the dial. I think the watches, they are plastic. It's not bioceramic, it's not ceramic or anything tough like that. It is a plastic watch, but it can handle a drop better than a stainless steel watch can. It's not going to just chip or anything like that. Unless you're throwing it at concrete or something, it's going to be fine.
Okay,
fair enough.
Oh, that's cool. Great. Okay, so watch fans, you're wrong. All right, we've got an expert saying that exactly. So okay. So this is like a question for like the whole panel, right? And it's more like it's like a straightforward question. if you could have one watch for the rest of your life, which watch are you taking?
Well, that's the hardest question to ask anyone.
With one watch, any watch, what are you taking?
On any given day, it's probably a different watch.
That's what I'm saying. Like, bro, it depends on how I feel. Oh my goodness. I mean, probably if I guess you're forcing me to choose one.
Yeah.
Like for any occasion, just because also I love it very much. I would probably say a Nautilus. It's like you can dress it up, you can dress it down. When you walk into the right room, people know what you're talking about. If you walk into the wrong room, people know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it covers all bases, I think. I will probably get a stainless one.
Nautilus.
And
Patek.
something more like vintage or a newer Nautilus.
Probably a newer one.
5711.
Or 5811.
Yeah. Probably 5811 actually. Just because I just like the finish is nice, the flush is good.
You deserve it.
Blue dial. Listen, it belongs to me. You know what I'm saying? I see it on my wrist every day.
You deserve nice things.
I see it on my wrist every day. So I would probably say Nautilus.
Okay.
What about you?
Okay.
I think the only watch that I've got in my mind right now that I'd probably be super happy with wearing every single day, I think would be a vintage King Midas.
Okay.
I think it's something different. People that know, they'll know exactly what you have, and I think I would love to have the King Midas box more than the watch, but
Okay.
I think I want both. Yeah.
King Midas, nice. What about you?
For me, it's between two, but I'm actually gonna choose one. Blancpain 50 Fathoms. I feel like that's every other day I just look at it and I'm just like, you know what I mean? So I think that's for me. I'd have it because I feel like with Blancpain you can rock it as a serious watch, you can rock it as a sports watch, you can actually dive with it. So, and I feel like for me, utility. So I feel like for me, Blancpain 50 Fathoms is the most beautiful dive watch in the world. That's my opinion. So Blancpain 50 Fathoms, black dial, black bezel. Yeah, I'll keep that. I can die happy. I can definitely die happy.
Cool
But
stuff.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good place to wrap it up.
To wrap it up, Casey, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
we really appreciate you, bro. We'll see you soon again, hopefully with a different style of video.
Yeah.
Watch out, guys, for that one. But thank you again for coming. Really appreciate your time. And guys, I mean, luxury time. If you didn't know, now you know.
Yes.
If you want a pre-owned, pre-owned marketplace in SA right now.
The biggest, by the way.
Yeah.
And the coolest. And the coolest. But that's my opinion.
And the coolest. To be fair, they actually are.
Yeah.
So do yourself a favor if you want a watch that none of us can afford, or a watch that you can afford. Head to Luxury Time, and you know what to do, and let them know that the dial sent you there.
Don't be too hard on yourself. We can afford it. Like soon. No,
soon. I mean, that Rashad Mill. That's all I'm gonna say. But we'll take it from there. But thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I think we're going to have a very cool video coming soon as well.
Yes, we do.
And you're welcome anytime back on the channel,
anytime,
man. We'd love to have you back in studio.
You're more welcome than most people.
This is not the last time with Casey, guys. Best
not the last time. There's going to be many more videos. But again, just thank you to you, everyone, for making this possible.
Yes.
For showing
thank
love.
Thank you to Luxury Time as well for hospitality.
Hospitality, showing us love, and actually, bringing one of their people here. We really appreciate it.
To lay down the facts, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it's like,
and the opinion, because also again on the ground it's not the same.
Yes.
Socials, we see the stuff, we like, okay, cool. We watch the usual guys, but actually what's happening in
the ground
in real time.
We don't.
Having the people who actually have to deal with it on a daily basis is priceless, really.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Casey. Everyone, like, share, subscribe, do all the nice things. Now you have to now.
Exactly.
Now you have to. This video has to get the most views, has to do everything, because now we have a guest now.
We have a guest.
So we're up now. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
We're up now. We're up. So, but peace and love.
And
never
as
forget
always,
to stay
on the watch.